question for the room is, how do you think the U.S. should respond to tightening relations between Angola and China? Once more, how do you think the U.S. should respond to tightening relations between Angola and China? Ready? This oil-rich nation has long relied on China as a lasting legacy of their lingering Cold War power rivalries. However, after a recent meeting between Angola leaders and Secretary of State Anthony Blinken, it looks like a future realignment might be in place, as the Washington Post articulates on March 14th of 2024, that recently Secretary of State Anthony Blinken met with Angolan officials to discuss a future of a transformative partnership. This is specifically in response to China's increasingly high investments within Angola, specifically seen in economic investments as well as climate and military. This has caused the international community to wonder how the United States should further respond to China's increasing influence. And so considering that the New York Times describes on December 3rd of 2023 that right now, China's rapidly increasing influence across the globe could pose a major threat to nations just like the United States, it becomes a matter of our foreign diplomacy to ask the question, how do you think the U.S. should respond to tightening relations between Angola and China? And the answer is that the U.S. must initiate a comprehensive plan to attack the key sectors of Angolan investment by first, increasing bilateral trade. Secondly, investing into the agricultural sector. Before finally, propelling new infrastructure projects. China and Angola began new relations in 1983 because in 1982, the Chinese government stated that they supported the Angolan government. And fast forward nearly 40 years later, and it has grown exponentially. This begets the first way, that the United States can respond to tightening relations between China and Angola, and that's by increasing bilateral trade. Currently, bilateral trade between China and Angola is increasing, as Reuters quantifies on February 14th of 2024, that recently China and Angola signed their investment protection agreement, which gives nearly all of Angolan firms 98% access to goods in the Chinese market with tariff-free access. This has already increased trade between China and Angola by nearly 21% in less 5 years alone. So that's exactly what the United States must respond to, as the Washington Post continues to corroborate on February 4th of 2024, that the United States must increase investment as well as bilateral trade with Angola to reverse their current 81% decline in trade seen since 2013. More specifically, the United States government can work to sell more steel and iron, heavily in-demand commodities for Angola, while also purchasing petroleum from Angola itself. And it's for this exact reason that the United States must boost bilateral trade between the nations to respond to tightening relations between China and Angola. Juliana is a 44-year-old mother living in Angola, and she's the wife to the owner of a major farm and has been for the past 20 years. But just in the past 5 years, as Angolan farms are suffering mass drought, she risks famine for not only herself, but her 4 children and her entire community. This is seen in the second way, that the United States can effectively respond to growing China and Angolan relations, and that's by investing in the agricultural sector. Recently, Angola has relied on China for investment into agriculture, as the World Bank explains on February 2nd of 2024, that China has recently invested billions of dollars into Chinese firms that support the agricultural sector within Angola. This is seen because just less than 10% Borders explains on September 20th of 2024 that the United States must increase investments specifically within the agricultural sector to develop climate resilient and a variety of crop varieties that then increase the propelling of growth within Angola. More specifically, the United States can partner with the World Bank in the recent $300 million investment to decrease the vulnerability of existing farms in Angola, while increasing those that are resilient to climate, while also increasing their agricultural products in the end as well. And it's for this exact reason that the United States must invest into Angola's agricultural sector. After Xi Jinping and Joe Biden met in December of last year, the Chinese president offered pandas as an envoy of friendship. But unfortunately, it looks like pandas aren't enough for the United States to take over what China might be looking to do so in the first place. The final way that the United States can respond to tightening relations between China and Angola is by propelling investments in critical infrastructure projects. Through the Belt and Road Initiative, China is investing into infrastructure in Angola. As the New York Times explains on November 2nd of 2023, that for the past decade, China has invested nearly $12 billion through their Belt and Road Initiative for infrastructure projects in Angola, specifically seen in energy, increasing water protection facilities and transmission facilities as well. And thankfully, that's exactly what the United States can do instead. And they're already doing so. As the Washington Post describes on January 14th of 2024, that after the meeting between Anthony Blinken and Angolan leaders, Angola actually rejected another $200 billion deal from China. Instead, for the United States' support in building a new rail corridor to transport minerals in and outside of Angola. If the United States can continue such investments into critical infrastructure projects, not only in rail, but also in the energy sector as well, they can counter China's growing influence across not only Angola, but the entire African continent. And so considering China's influence across the world, it becomes a matter of extreme importance to return to the question: how should the U.S. respond to tightening relations between China and Angola? And the answer is by initiating a comprehensive plan to invest in key sectors in Angola. First, seen in increasing bilateral trade. Secondly, investing into the agricultural sector, before finally propelling investments in infrastructure. While this oil-rich nation may have long relied on China for investments, it looks like this realignment is seeing the United States as another major